Prison. We've all heard about it, but do we know what it's like behind those walls? Well, unless you've been incarcerated, chances are you don't. As a student in 10th grade, what I know about prison is limited to what I know from social media. Learning from things like Shawshank Redemption or Prison Mike, and trust me, Prison Mike is not a good resource. Prison has this mysterious cloud around it. We don't know what's in that cloud until we get there. Only it's not just water vapor. There's thunder, there's lightning all around. When you get out, you're a completely changed person. It's impossible to believe that we barely know anything about something so important in our society. Our taxes pay for it, yet we barely know anything about it. We don't teach it in our schools, yet our country, the United States of America, has the highest rate of incarceration than any other country in the world. So you're probably asking yourselves, Juliana, what's your point? Well, what you probably don't know is that the prison system in our country is corrupt, and there's almost nothing in the media about it. If you can name one story you've seen or one event that's been on the news, you're lucky, because it wasn't before I started this project that I actually started thinking about prison and what goes on inside it. Our prison systems are actually such a huge problem. There's a whole non-profit devoted to criminal justice, and yet I had never heard about it. They're doing so good, working and fighting for the rights that criminals deserve, but we've never heard of it. Named after Thurgood Marshall, who sought to seek justice for the low, no matter race or sex, the Marshall Project seeks for criminal justice for the things that are unjust. You heard of it? Yeah, neither have they. They write award-winning articles sharing thousands of stories from the former incarcerated, some of them showing how prison hurt more than help. One thing we never see as corrupt, but we've definitely heard about it, is solitary confinement. This is the practice where a prisoner is kept alone in a cell for days, months, or years on end. This practice can leave emotionally scarring damage on a person. Humans are social creatures, and without that social interaction, we degrade. Solitary confinement continues to be a horrible practice. One man who wrote to the Marshall Project grew to have agoraphobia from being in solitary confinement for too long. Agoraphobia is the fear of places and situations that might cause panic, helplessness, or embarrassment. After spending 22 years and 36 days in solitary confinement, this man is now thrown into panic whenever he sees somewhere that is bigger than his cell. How horrible is that? Imagine spending all that time alone, being told that once you're out, you're good and nothing bad will happen. Imagine spending all that time in a small dark cell just to be completely tortured to even leave that cell. In his last 5 years in that cell, he wasn't allowed to leave it. He couldn't even go out to stretch his legs. 5 years without being able to see a single person. Your only joy being having your meal delivered to your door. I have a hard enough time sitting still, let alone being stuck in a small, dark, dank cell for days on end. This man imagined a whole different life from his own. He sought a real life that was unattainable. He separated himself from his own existence. He was so afraid of leaving his cell that he didn't even brush his teeth. So his teeth began to rot. It got so bad that he pulled 4 of his own teeth out on his own without going to the dentist they have in prison. And the torture just kept on going. Finally, people from a psychiatric ward came to get him. He would try to talk to them, but he hadn't talked to people in so long, and his vocal cords were so weak he couldn't talk. He tried to, but he couldn't. He served 42 years in prison. The last 20 of those were spent returning himself back to normal. In these horror stories, we hear about things that are unimaginable. This solitary confinement is a form of torture. The people in that prison thought they needed to separate him, keep him alone, but he needed help. All solitary confinement did was drive him crazy. This corrupt form of torture is crazy. But we don't see this in the media. And so we see that Kim Kardashian got a new baby, or so-and-so died. But what about this man who is emotionally and physically scarred for the rest of his life? What about him? He'll remain forgotten and tortured by the very thought of going outside. This story reminds me of a movie I once watched called Shawshank Redemption. This old man named Brooks had been in prison for so long that when he finally got parole, he tried to kill somebody to stay in prison. He had gotten so used to life in prison that he didn't want to leave. Finally, his buddies convinced him to leave, but once he did, he was so tortured about what to do that he ended up killing himself. Of course, this was a movie, but when I saw this story from the Marshall Project, all I thought was, oh my god, this actually happens. At least when it was a movie, I had the security of knowing it wasn't true. But this is real life, not make-believe land. And what you don't know is that prison isn't even serving its purpose. It's supposed to lower crime rate. But in fact, according to the Sentencing Project, in recent years it's been the highest it has ever been. So what kind of system is that? It's doing the opposite of its intent. On top of that, it's using cruel measures to reach their goal. If you told a child that a place like this existed, it would break their little hearts and they would want to do something. So why don't we feel the same? If you walk away from this video with anything, try to donate somewhere. Educate yourself. Just don't walk around completely oblivious to what's going on